Greetings to all. Hope you all are doing fine. It's been a while because I've shifted my base from New Delhi to Mohali in Punjab. And there's been a lot of traveling and a lot of adjustments to the new place. So I've been taking it easy, Sahaj. So, Jackie, can we begin with the yin yoga?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Is my
perfect.
volume okay? Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
So we'd like to begin with a yin yoga session tonight, and then we'll move into Jagjot's talk. So I'd like to begin this yin yoga session by acknowledging that perhaps you are going through a hectic time in your life right now. And this is often a signal that we need to slow down. And yin yoga offers a way to uncover that balance in our daily life. So I think that can be an intention today for us is balance. Some people do yoga as a part of their own meditation or spiritual practice. Other people do it because they feel better after they are finished with the yoga session. They simply like doing yoga, and that's fine. And maybe you yourself have your own unique reasons for doing yoga. Whatever one's own personal reasons are, they are valid. But there can be more to practicing yoga. We can also set an intention that goes beyond our own personal benefit. And this can be done at the beginning of one's yoga practice. In some branches of yoga philosophy, this setting of a greater intention is sometimes called Ishvara Pranitana, like a surrendering of one's own efforts to something greater than yourself. And you may even recognize this concept from texts like the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna tells Arjuna to certainly give his greatest effort, but at the same time to let go of any attachment to the outcome of that effort. And we also see it in a text from the West in the Bible, where Christ says to God the Father, "Not my will, but thy will be done." And so we see this in many different paths worldwide, this surrendering of one's personal effort to something greater. When a challenging time comes up in one's yoga practice, and let's be honest, it usually will, we can find the extra strength we need in that moment because of this dedication. Higher intentions allow the fruits of yoga practice to go beyond oneself. And at the same time, this creates strength in oneself too, even though that's not the point. . in our daily lives, I think we often find that our energy is constantly flowing outward to others. A lot is asked of us. And adding to that, we often receive a lot of messages in the world telling us that we are not good enough. And sometimes this is simply not helpful or useful to us. Sometimes what we actually need may be to draw one's own energy inward. And one way to draw energy inward can be as simple as chanting Om once or twice or even 3 times, and allowing that vibration of sound to fill the body, and then pause for a moment. So I'd like to begin with that now. Let's chant Om 3 times and just let the sound fill the space, both inner and outer. Om. 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 Of course, longer chants can also be used if you prefer. Chanting is often associated with what we call pranayama, which not only stimulates energy to flow through us, but it also has a calming and centering effect on our mind. So once you feel clear in your mind about why you are here today with us, you're ready to begin. Most yin yoga sessions are gentle in the beginning and throughout, even at the end. So unlike a hatha yoga session or vinyasa, there's not really a peak and a coming down again. It's fairly steady throughout and very calming. A period of meditation is often a nice addition to a yin yoga session. So if you're not sitting in a comfortable position, I invite you to sit as comfortably as possible right now. You can even lie down if you want, or sometimes people prefer to stand in an easy pose like mountain pose, which is also called Tadasana. So it depends on your preference, but the important thing is to feel relaxed and comfortable. Then once you're comfortable, and so I'm comfortable sitting, so I'll stay here for the moment. Then what I'd like us to do is simply watch oneself and take a few moments, a few breaths, and just take what I call inventory of yourself. And this is very simple. It's just taking note of where you're starting from right here and now, both physically and mentally, and we can even explore emotionally too. So starting with physically, how does your body feel right now? Just take note. Is there any tension? Is there any soreness or stiffness? And anything that we notice, we don't judge, we just notice it. And we don't try to change it. We just let it be. Then we can move and think about what's going on with us mentally, what thoughts are arising right now. You can simply allow all thoughts and sensations to come or arise and go or fall. An inner inventory, as I call it, is useful for grounding, beginning by allowing the awareness to sink into our lower belly region. From here, we can notice the rhythm of the breath. We can feel the rising and falling of each inhalation and exhalation. And unlike other paths of yoga, in yin yoga, we don't have a set rule about breathing in through the nose or mouth, or exhaling through the nose or mouth. The focus is on natural breathing. So how you breathe most easily, naturally. So it's a little different. We can feel the rise and fall of the breath, and we don't need to try to change anything. We can accept our breathing exactly the way it is right now, without self-judgment or forcing it to be a certain way. Just noticing it. Technique that some people like to use when they're focusing on their breath is to just mentally in their mind say to themselves in when they're inhaling and out with the exhale, with each breath, in and out. Some people prefer to say rising with the in breath, and to themselves they'll say falling with the out breath. So rising, falling, in, out. It's up to you. Some people find it easier to follow the breath by noticing, just simply noticing the movement of the air in and out of the body, in and out of the lungs. And the feeling of the air in the throat, some people like to focus on that as they're breathing, and others like to focus on the feeling of the breath moving in and out of the mouth as it passes by the lips. So these are some techniques to try. And the main awareness aim here is to let that noticing linger wherever it is easiest to stay with the sensation of the breath. So the choice is yours. Which of those techniques is easiest and most useful as you bring your awareness there to the in and the out of the air. Then once we've taken a few in and out breaths, we can allow our awareness to broaden and become even more vast. Now we can notice other feelings in the body. For example, the feeling of sitting on the floor or on the seat, or if you're standing, the feeling of your feet on the floor. We can notice the temperature of the air against the skin. You may even choose to allow yourself to simply listen to the sounds around you. We call that the ambience of the room. Listening is a wonderful way to be in the present moment. We don't have to do anything to create these sounds. We just let them come to us. Sounds from near or far, sounds that are loud or soft. We just allow them all in without judging them as pleasant or unpleasant, likable or unlikable. We can just listen. And after that, we can bring our awareness even higher up to the heart level. And from here, we check in with the state of our emotional body. And this can be difficult. We are not well trained in our culture to notice or value our emotions. And so when we may be asked, what are you feeling right now? Many of us can't answer because we may think that we're feeling nothing at all. But upon deeper investigation, this is rarely so. What is perhaps happening is that we are unaware of the state of our heart in that moment. So this is time in yin yoga to investigate a little more deeply into our emotional body. Emotions don't need to be big or dramatic feelings. They can be more subtle. If we look closely and we don't dismiss anything that appears. So even a small emotion such as boredom can appear, or something like a little bit of irritation about something that isn't quite to our liking. Impatience is a really common emotion during yoga practice, and that's all okay. And contentment can also appear from time to time, and that's also okay. None of these emotions are better or worse than the other. They are all just there and just happening inside of us. The key is to just notice what is arising without judging yourself for whatever is there, whatever is going on. There's no need to criticize oneself for feeling bored or irritated. On the other hand, there's no need to even congratulate ourselves if we're feeling content. We can just notice what's happening right now, and we can watch it change. It can change often, so we can just watch that happening. Following that, we can allow our awareness to rise even higher. And on the body, that's represented by the point right between the eyes on the forehead. So we can bring our awareness to that point. And from here, we can start to pay attention to the thoughts arising in the mind. We're not trying to stop the thoughts from coming. In my experience, that is fruitless. So what I'd like to do is just watch each thought as it arises. A new one may arise, and then we notice it, and then we can let it float away like clouds. And then we can watch the next thought come or arise and then go. And perhaps it would be helpful to label the thoughts. And just a 1 or 2 word label will do. It doesn't need to be detailed or strenuous. We can label a thought very generally, like planning, recalling, imagining. And again, we don't need to be judgmental about whatever thoughts do come up, because all kinds of thoughts can come up. So we're just watching them come and go. And they're moving just like the clouds move by in the sky. So we don't judge the clouds, and we don't judge our thoughts either. From here, we can move into full body yoga postures or asanas. However, as we take asanas, we can continue the self-inventory practice of noticing what's happening on a physical level, on a mental level, and on an emotional level. So this is also something fairly unique about yin yoga. That said, if something is noticed in the physical body that is painful, that is a clear signal that it is time to adjust or modify your physical position, or simply take a break, take a rest, or stop what you're doing and rest, and you can simply listen or meditate, whatever feels most comfortable for you in that moment. So I'm trusting each of you to tune into your own body and make sure that if pain arises, you adjust, modify, rest, or stop. And while you move into and out of and hold these postures, that can be a continuous time for taking inner inventory, as we just did. We can also notice how the yin yoga practice affects oneself on all of these levels and accept whatever we find out. It's like an exploration. We're discovering and staying curious about our own selves. So the focus is inward. We just keep on being curious, and that's how the energy will begin to move effortlessly. Yin yoga, the aim of yin yoga is to remove what we would call blockages deep in our connective tissues, and then allow the energy to just flow in an unhindered way. But before the energy can flow, often there needs to be a little bit of stimulation. So in more forceful or energetically for example, hatha yoga or vinyasa yoga, where one is very energetically engaged, there's a flow, one may even increase one's heart rate or even oftentimes break a sweat. This is different because we are not so much engaging the muscles, we are avoiding that in yin yoga practice. We are focusing more on, first of all, the lower body. Most of the postures are passive, meaning the body weight itself is used as through gravity itself, that's it. And the focus is inward. So we're not comparing ourselves with a mirror, we're not comparing ourselves with the people next to us, we are turning inward for yin yoga practice. To get the energy flowing in yin yoga, we do use what I would call more subtle techniques, like the ones that I just showed you and that we just practiced together today. And these can be done anytime, not just in yin yoga sessions or in a group. They can be done anytime. Anytime you feel like centering or grounding, so not necessarily only before doing yoga asana practice. So now, we may be wondering which asana comes first in yin yoga. There are about 25 main yin yoga poses, and we'll do just a couple today. And remember, not every asana is for everybody. Not even, I've been practicing yin yoga for over 2 decades, and not even for me is every yin yoga asana conducive with my body. So I trust each of you, as I said here, to know and to respect your own limits. And if a certain pose is not right for you, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. There are so many ways to center oneself and just relax into your own beingness. For example, sitting, you can lie down, you can focus on your breath in a more comfortable position of your choice. So let's begin with an asana called butterfly. This asana opens up the lower back and relieves tension in the groin area. So I'm going to move back to sit on my yoga mat. And to enter this pose, I sit and I put my legs in front of me. Then I slowly, and in yin yoga, we do most things slowly. So I slowly put the bottoms of my feet together and my knees open. So from my feet to my knees to my pelvic area, I'm making a diamond shape like this. It looks like a diamond. Now, this may be enough of a hold. If you feel already opened up, you can stay here. You can support your own knees if there's any tension there. Or if you'd like to take it deeper, you can allow the gravity of your own upper body to fall forward slowly. And you can even lower your head, and we'll just hold this easily. And we focus inward on our breath and on our mental body and on our emotional body. And we're continually checking in with our physical body as well. And we hold it. I'm going to be silent for a few moments. We should be feeling relaxed, not tense. And these can be held for sometimes 3 minutes, 5 minutes, or beyond. So feel free to stay as long as you like. I'm going to come out of this butterfly pose now by slowly rounding with a rounded back. I come and I straighten my spine. And I take a breath in and out naturally, not forcing anything. And I open my eyes. And the next asana we can do is half butterfly. This asana also opens up the lower back, but additionally, it stretches the connective tissue in the legs. So from butterfly, moving into half butterfly, we can open each of our legs into a large, wide V, a V shape. And, depending on how comfortable and flexible one is, it might be a wider V shape or a more narrow. It's not a competition. So wherever is comfortable. And then we take one of our legs. I'm going to take my right leg. Doesn't matter which one you choose. And I pull it in towards me. And I put my foot on the ground in front of my pelvic region on the floor. So one of my legs is pulled in towards me. The other remains out. Then I let gravity, and this may be enough of a stretch. If you feel a stretch here and you feel easy and relaxed here, stay here. If you'd like to take it deeper, you can put your hands on the floor in front of you. And again, just letting the gravity pull the upper body forward. And we can drop the head. And then relax into this posture. Breathing naturally. And continually taking self-inventory again of our physical body, our mental body, and our emotional body. I'm going to be silent for a few moments while we all turn inward. Your body may want to sink further into this stretch as you hold it, and that's totally fine. Nothing is forced. Nothing needs to change. We accept our bodies as they are right now. And again, you can hold this for a number of minutes. I'm going to come slowly out of it by pushing up from the floor, rounding my back, straightening my spine, and then finally opening my eyes. And then we'll do half butterfly with the other leg. So stretch the bent leg out, make that large V shape with our legs. Taking the other leg now, pulling it inward gently, slowly. Nestling that foot on the ground in front of our pelvic region on the floor so it's tucked in there. The other leg remains in the V shape. And again, this may be as much of a stretch as you want to do. If you wish, you can put your hands on the floor in front of you and let gravity pull the body over and forward, rounding the back, breathing naturally. You can let the head drop. We just breathe natural. And we let gravity do what gravity does. And we're still taking our inner self exploration of our physical body, noting any changes. We're taking note of our mental body, any thoughts arising, coming and going. And we're taking note of our emotional body, any feelings as they arise and fall away again. And again, feel free to hold these poses, these asanas, as long as you feel comfortable. It's not unusual in yin yoga to hold these for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, or longer. We'll come out of this slowly, pushing our hands up, keep our back rounded. We slowly straighten the spine and open our eyes. And for the final asana tonight, I'd like to do caterpillar. caterpillar stretches the tissue, the ligaments around the spine, and it also aids in digestion. To get into caterpillar from half butterfly, let's slowly take our legs and put them, we can use our hands to help too. Move the legs in front, straight in front. Together, feet together. Back is straight. Hands are relaxed on the thighs or on the floor. And then we let gravity pull us forward, and we can go as far as is comfortable. So for some days, I only go just maybe an inch or two forward. That's what my body does that day. Other days, there seems to be more spaciousness in my body, and then I notice I can lean a bit more forward using only gravity, no force. So once you've reached that rounded back, leaning forward as much as is relaxed and comfortable, then the head can bow. And when the head bows, it really tends to facilitate that inward focus, that inward turning, where we look at what is happening inside ourselves. And we just rest here, breathing naturally, noticing and allowing body to do what it's doing, noticing and allowing our thoughts to do what they're doing, and noticing and allowing our emotions to do the same, coming and going. We let it be. And our inward focus has a very calming effect on us. We're not attached to any one thing right now. We're just letting it flow. So to come out of caterpillar, and again, you can hold it as long as you like. I'm going to come out by pushing my hands on the floor, straightening my spine, opening my eyes. And if I felt any tension at all in my back, and I'll do this from the side so you can see better. After I came out of caterpillar, sometimes I like to put my hands behind me and look up and lean back, very relaxed. And just breathe. And some yoga teachers like to have us shake our legs out. So if there's any tension in your legs, you can shake them or move them side to side if that's comfortable. So now, getting back into whatever position is most comfortable for you, seated or on a chair, on the floor, or standing. For me, sitting on the floor is comfortable right now. And I'd like to end today by chanting Om again 3 times, just like we did in the beginning. Om. Om. Namaste. Thank you so much for being here. And now I'd like to pass the torch to Jagjot for today's talk.
Thank you, Jacqueline, for that relaxing and calming yin yoga session. Now, one thing to notice here is that was anyone practicing anything here? As in, who was doing the yoga practice? If you notice carefully, the asanas were happening, the breath was moving, the observation was happening, emotions were rising, and different sensations were again rising, playing, and subsiding. Some of us may enjoy the session. Some of us may think, when will it get finished? Some of us may have some different thought entirely. But in the sea of awareness, thoughts play. But there is no thinker. And that is the whole understanding. It is not the truth, it is only a concept. Non-duality is a concept. Yin yoga is also a concept. And concept is not the truth. A concept can be used, can be evaluated with one's own personal experience, and then one can come to a conclusion as to what it serves. So I will start with a quote by Ramesh, and I'll read out his words. In the functioning of manifestation comes the basic concept. No one does anything. Nothing happens unless it is the will of Source, the will of God. This means the ego is an illusion. The sense of personal doership is an illusion. This is the final understanding. When we do any practice, whether it is yoga or meditation or contemplation, we get a glimpse into the truth. And truth happens when there is complete surrender of the effort. So when the effort is completely gone, the practitioner dissolves into the practice. However, the problem is that once the practice is over, the practitioner comes back. And when the practitioner comes back, it demands for the repeat of the pleasure that it experienced through its own absence. In the short duration, it was doing the practice, or let's say when the practice was happening. The absence of me is also an observation, but it is not the observation by me. It is simply the impersonal observation that is completely detached to any outcome, and that is fully receptive to whatever is arising in this very moment. And this observation, or let's call it awareness, is not separate from the content that is being observed. And the end of separation between the observer and the observed is the cessation of suffering, according to the concept. So Ramesh says here that everything happens as per will of God or source, or you can call it cosmic law. If you don't like to use the word God, we can call it cosmic law. And the total acceptance of cosmic law includes that the human object, that means the mind body organism, with its limited intellect, cannot make sense of the cosmic law. That means it cannot know why things are happening the way they are happening. All it can do is accept the cosmic law. And in that acceptance is peace. And Ramesh would say that it is the same peace that one experiences in deep sleep, where there is no sense of the separate self making any observation, but only the pure I or the pure awareness shining by itself. There was a point in my life when I would meditate for hours in order to sustain peace, because the idea was that if I meditated longer, I would see something, or I would get some sort of an understanding which will stop the mind. So sitting in long hours and trying to do the meditation kept the practitioner alive. And then some distortions happened, because there was an attempt to modify the thought, modify whatever was arising. There was a preference in that activity. And the preference was that I would like to make my mind peaceful, and it has to happen the way I want it to happen. And when this was noticed, now, see that I'm saying when this was noticed, I'm not saying that I noticed it. When this was noticed, the whole effort to change the content of consciousness completely disappeared. And when that happened, the need to meditate for long hours also disappeared. In fact, meditation acquired a new shape, I would say, a new form, and it was the flow of life, the acceptance of unaltered flow of life. That means whatever was being brought in awareness was accepted, and that included me not being okay with what was being presented. That included me not being peaceful with the situation that was arising in the given moment. This is what I call as Sahaj, the easeful way. So, if you notice in this entire practice of yin yoga, there was no forcing of anything. There was simply the observation. And mind was being given certain instructions that the body has to be moved in this particular way, in that particular way. But it was not done with an outcome in mind. It was just happening. And the body, with its own intelligence, was actually doing what it needed to do. So, some of you may not have done the postures, some of you may have modified the postures, some of you may have just started thinking about maybe some other concept, and even that was accepted. In other words, the mind is not to be fought. The very attempt to control the mind leads to more restlessness. But when the control is surrendered, that means when there is no effort, then mind automatically becomes restful, easeful. And that's why Jacqueline was giving you all the options. You can hold the posture for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, up totally up to you. Mind was being given all the options so that it can choose whatever it feels like. But the whole idea was that there was an observation happening throughout this activity. If one is aware enough, it can be seen how different emotions, sensations, feelings arise in the body, how different thoughts arise in the body. And one can make a relationship between the thought and the accompanying sensation. Although they are not two different movements, they are one and the same movement. One feels that maybe a thought is separate from an emotion because these are two different forms. But these are two different forms in awareness. So they are actually one and the same movement. And their substratum is awareness, because without awareness, these cannot be felt, these cannot be experienced. But when one becomes more and more restful in daily living, this whole emotional charge that one experiences because of certain ideas about oneself, I am so and so, I belong to this country, I belong to this nation, I belong to this religion, this group, this sect, this environment, that whole structure begins to it begins to dissolve. It doesn't break down completely, but it begins to dissolve, and one's hold on such ideas becomes loosened. So when that happens, the easefulness naturally begins to happen in life. But till we are totally caught up with some idea that my life should be this way and not that way, that I should be happy only if certain conditions in my life are met. Then there always be, there will always be some sort of discomfort, some sort of suffering. Total surrender includes total acceptance of what is, means things the way they are. And it includes sometimes all the feelings, all the emotions that one is feeling. It is only the sense of separate self, that I am an individual with a name and form as a separate entity, with a sense of personal doership, that one suffers in life. And doership can be extremely subtle. Sometimes in our communication with others, we try to plant seeds. That is doership. We try to manipulate conversations, try to get them to speak a certain way, try to create doubt in other people. It is all doership. It is all one movement, the movement that comes from the self centered activity. And that center is me. And Ramesh says there is no me. So I will read a quote of his, which is, what is the final bottom line of acceptance and surrender? Question mark. That there is truly no me who can do anything. He says that the sense of personal doership is an illusion. The claim that I am the doer, that I did this, I did that. If one can see the whole web of thoughts, beliefs, and ideas one is entangled in, one can observe that this is happening so frequently in our daily living, that we are caught up with so many ideas. We are being told by so many people that we should do this, we should do that, we should behave like this, we should behave like that. This thing is good, that thing is not good. And we get so identified. And when those ideas are, those beliefs are challenged, we become angry. But if you examine, if you think about it, it is not a constant thing that we get upset over the same ideas over and over again. When one is completely happy and relaxed, generally the same idea being challenged will not trigger us. But if we are upset, maybe if, let's say, if we have come from if we have passed through traffic in New Delhi or Mumbai, and we've been stuck there for hours, and then somebody comes and says something about our looks or or the vehicle that we are driving or anything that we are identified with, that can trigger us. But there are so many factors at play which we cannot see. Therefore, the created object, that is the mind body organism, cannot make sense of the cosmic law. Our our problem is that we conclude things based on the situation that we see in the immediate time frame. We see two people fighting and we all of a sudden conclude, oh, he's right and the other one is wrong. Now that is based on the limited filters, on the filtered perception. We may identify with one person's thought and not identify with the other person's thought. And then we may take sides that, oh, this person was right and the other person was wrong. But we don't see the whole picture. If somebody showed us the whole life story of every person we have fought with in life, of every human being that we say that we dislike or don't want to be around, if we were shown the whole life reel of that human being, I think we will never be able to hate them. Yes, we may choose to not be in their company because of certain factors, but we will not be able to hold any resentment or hate or malice towards them. It's only when our information is limited. It's only when we superimpose an image onto that person based on their appearance, based on their mood, based on certain other factors that we draw quick conclusions. That we give them the seeds of doership. We say, you should be like this. You should not be like that. You should not be angry. This is very common. You should not be angry. But anger is an emotion and it has been given. You should not be jealous. And I have not come across any human being who does not show these in some form of the or the other. All emotions, all emotions are there. In fact, Ramesh himself said that even a sage, what he meant by a sage is the one who has the understanding of the concept and has given up the sense of personal doership. Even a sage experiences all emotions. But the only thing is that those emotions do not carry forward in horizontal time as suffering. The sage does not take it personally and live with that idea that, oh, I have been hurt by so and so person and I'm going to teach them a lesson or I'm going to take revenge. Sage does not live like that. Sage accepts what happened in the moment and moves on. And the whole journey of seeking is this investigation into this me. Who is this me? Ramana Maharishi would say, who am I? This is the fundamental investigation because we are very quick to find relief when we are troubled. And sometimes that can be anything like indulgences or just things like, reading books, sexual activity, trying to socialize. It can be anything. But one place that we fear most is going within because we do not see what we like there. So the whole movement of our mind is outward. Whereas all of these teachings are trying to make the mind move inwards. I will just read one last quote from Ramesh Balsekar, which will make this clear. He says, "What is seeking? Seeking is you wanting to know God. Whatever you know is an object, and you are the subject. So, if you want to know God, what does it mean? You are the subject, and God is the object. But what exists in the other way, but what exists is the other way around. God is the subject, and you are the object. So, what he's saying is that you are the created object that is trying to figure out what is God and how God works, which is not going to happen. The total acceptance of this brings about a profound understanding. It ends the seeking. An ending of the seeking brings peace, which Ramesh would say is what we all seek deep down. Happiness, excitement, thrill, these are all temporary. They are like waves rising in the ocean. But the ocean is the substratum, it is the base, because everything goes back into it. Ocean is where everything arises, and ocean is where everything subsides. So if you feel that you can surrender and give up something, then give up your sense of personal doership. And this has been my personal experience. And I speak from my experience when I say that a way human being is how God created that human being. Now, this does not mean that we have to force ourselves to align with other people's views and ideas or tolerate bad behavior from them. All it means is that we accept that God creates all types of mind body organisms. Some of them may align with our ideas, some of them may not align with our ideas. Some of them will be loving, others will not be loving. Some will be soft, others will be rash. When there is total acceptance of this, one can still have a preference of who they want to associate with in life and who they don't want to associate in life. Because your peace of mind is your birthright. And you can certainly, at least this much free will we have. The only free will we have is to make the choice. Once we have made the choice, after that, the free will finishes. Now, let's say if one is in a difficult situation, let's say if one is with a parent where the parent is rash, or let's say one is in the presence of someone who's from authority, like a policeman, and in that moment, the policeman is rash. One can certainly do their best to make the situation uncomfortable, but in that moment, whatever suffering has to happen will happen. Now, accepting that suffering in the moment actually reduces the intensity of pain. And then, once the situation is, once you have crossed the situation, one can certainly choose if one wants to associate with that person anymore or not. Certain relationships can be very tough. And one can certainly choose whether one wants to continue or not continue. That depends on the personal attitude. But with this idea in mind, actually the nature of relationships change, because when the doership is surrendered, that means when the mind has no motive as such, but only this simple idea that the other human being is precisely the way God created them, at least at this moment, at this point of time. Yes, they may change for better or for worse in future, and that is not in our control. Then the nature of relationship does change. So the end result of this is that one becomes more and more comfortable with oneself. And irrespective of their preferences, they do not chase an outcome, which makes life simple. And the whole idea, whether it is yin yoga or quote unquote non duality or Advaita teaching, is to make life simple, as simple as possible. Okay, we can take some questions now. Questions or comments, or somebody wants to share something, you can just raise your hand and I will unmute you. Yes, Sarthak.
Namaste, Jagjot. How you been? It's been
I'm
such a long.
fine. I'm good. How are you? Tell me.
I'm really, really good, and I'm really, really happy that a new change has come into your life of you moving to a new place. So I wish you the best with that.
Thank
Uh,
you. Thank you.
yeah. Um, I wasn't planning on asking a question, but it's just this is just coming completely spontaneously.
Sure.
Um, I wanted to talk a little about this really interesting thing that happened, and it centers around the concept of seva. So, my mother comes from an art of living background. So she's been doing that for quite some time. Like since I was young, I was surrounded by meditation, yoga, books, and all that. Now, now since she's so um knee deep into it, right? All these years, she has, of course, made a lot of friends and associates that know me, right? Also, they're teachers also, like they give courses and
Mm.
so I remember I was talking to this lady who gives like she's a teacher and she was sharing a few things with me. I was sharing a few things with her. And as these things go, people have an opinion, right? And she shared her opinion with my mother. It's really funny. She always shares an opinion about me with my mother. I don't know why, but she always does that. But in like not in a negative way, but just in a I have to pass a comment. Sarthak, he's, oh, the void. We slipped into a void for a moment there.
Yes, I think it's back. Can you hear me now?
Again.
Yeah, okay. Okay. I think the void is gone. Yes. God's will. Yes.
Uh, so,
Okay.
like, Sarthak, I've been watching him over the years, right? And I'm like really proud of his, I don't know, the way he's kind of morphed himself, into who he is, or he has been morphed by a higher power, whichever way you might want to put it. Now, she did say that, like, everything is good, but, there's this one thing. And they were trying to make me, like, they've been trying for a while to turn me into a teacher. They keep making me like making offers to me, but they have this one caveat, and this is my question. The caveat is, he's great and all, but he doesn't do any seva. You, you know what I mean, right? You know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
So I immediately, like, my mom brought that up, and she was like, I met her again, and she was saying, everything is good. Like, लड़का बहुत, like, सर्वगुण संपन्न हमारी लड़की के लिए बहुत बढ़िया है, लेकिन सेवा नहीं करता, यही दिक्कत है. So, I was like, I didn't give her a, like, I all I said was like, I don't know, my understanding, like, my understanding of spirituality is very simple. It's like, if you can keep a mindful presence around people everywhere you go, for me, that is seva itself. And of course, if within that there also arises something for me to actually do physically, go somewhere, feed people, be around people, teach people. If that comes up spontaneously, I'm open to it. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm always doing seva. And I have done it. And I'm not discriminating whether that person is my friend, whether the person is a stranger I met online, if that person is like just a guard who just needed a pick me up with me, like smiling and waving at him, or maybe it's a dog on the street. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's something that like the ego mind cannot see. All it wants to see is this person is in this location with these people, and look at him, he's bowing down and he's, feeding trays, and he's, I don't know, I find it a bit performative
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah.
So I just wanted your thoughts on that.
Yeah.
You know,
So
seva thing does come up as a event in the Advaitan way of life.
yeah. So this is what I was saying that, people have this idea that I want to attain God or I want to attain peace of mind, and but I want to do it my way. You see, the idea that I have for peace, for God, for attainment. And this is the classic doership. When one has an idea of seva as as they have experienced it, through a couple of people. So they conclude that that's the only way seva can be done, or that it has to be done in a very performative manner, like, you know, putting up a bhandara or whatever you call it, the whole thing, and then feeding so many people, and those people will line up again. you know First they'll line up here, then they'll line up there, and that's all fine. That's all fine, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that thought at all. But the 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 idea here is, the concept here is that if one is at peace with oneself, that is the greatest seva to the world that you can offer. You know, because Ramana Maharishi said that your own self realization is the greatest service to humanity. So, man, if you are peaceful, you will not be a nuisance to other people in the world. So, I think that most people are so conditioned in that way to thrust their ideas onto other people, that seva has to be done in this way, or things have to be done in this way. That's what I said when I was talking about identifications earlier, that it has to be a certain way, it has to have a certain pattern. But at every strata of society, there are people doing service in different ways, and they're not even claiming anything that they're doing, right? So there is no doership over there. For example, somebody may be writing a book about philosophy or life in general, or maybe just some poetry in general, may influence somebody else in a very, their words may touch other people in a very different way. So who knows? Sometimes a song somebody's just singing, and sometimes you just see somebody smiling that can touch you. That can touch you. I mean, I've seen some people just smiling on the road, and when you're stressed and you just watch someone smiling, I think that also is a seva in a way. So, you know, it's I think it's the classic trap where they feel that it has to be done in a certain way. And then it is like, okay, if you've done once you have achieved this, then you're complete, then you're ready. So, so I think it's okay. Some people are conditioned like that, and maybe that's how God has designed them. So, so that's also fine.
It's all good.
It's all good. Yes, it's all good. It's different expressions of life from different people. And the underlying substratum of it all is peace. Deep down, everybody wants peace, because that's where this idea comes from, that if I do more service, if I do more meditation, if I do more this or that, then I will be at peace. But my understanding is that peace is right here in this very moment. One can just tap into that peace. It's not a function of time. It can be just tapped right now, here and now. Simple as this. And Ramesh would say, Advaita is the unconditional acceptance of what is. And that strikes a chord with me immediately. Unconditional acceptance of things the way they are. Now, it's generally not a very popular idea, because we have been told that no, things have to be this way or that way. And then we get caught up. Then we again get caught up. So, yeah.
Can I share something else? But really small.
Okay.
So another incident happened where I was like, you. It's funny you mentioned, writing a book or writing a story or writing a song. Anything creative can, and it does move people. I've been moved by a lot of artists that might not be like great human beings in like their real life, but their work has made me into one. So that also happens, right?
Yes.
We
Yes.
shouldn't judge.
Yeah.
Oh, this person, he was a very bad husband. I was talking about like some author who had like a troubled past with some guy, and he was like, yeah, like, judge the art, not the
Yeah.
artist.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was sitting in this place and I was just working on my book. Few people come in and they started talking about Yoga Sutras. And I was like eavesdropping on their conversation while working. And it was like happening very simultaneously. No intention to like, engage at that time. But this lady started like noticing me or whatever, right? And she was like, come over. We're gonna have like, a chat or whatever. And I was like, sure, okay, my work is almost my like the words for the day were finished. So I was like, okay, I can do this. So I sat with them. And of course, those concepts of doership did arise with them and like their difficulty to accept certain things. I wasn't preaching or anything. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I was just sharing, like, yeah, this is what I've also read. I've read this and that. Like, not in a showy way, but in like just a very casual way. And at the end of the evening, what I found very funny was, I accidentally said, and we were talking about money because that's another issue with spirituality, right? People kind of get way too hung up on whether, how should we rea like play with money? So something came, I don't know, like some Gautam's words came from somewhere. I was like, money comes from consciousness and goes into consciousness. And that triggered people. I kid you
Yeah.
not, that triggered a
Yeah.
few people. It
Yeah.
triggered
Yeah.
them. They were like, oh my God, how can you say that? There's so many poor people. I was like, I'm talking about you and I, like people who are in the different strata of society. Of course, like these are two sep. That's another thing that happens, combining two different topics in one discussion, or not entertaining two opposing ideas at the same time. it's simply something that emotionally triggers people.
Yes.
So can you talk also about that, like not being able to entertain two ideas at the same time?
Yes. Yes. It is again the I think this is what Ramesh is talking about when he says acceptance of things the way they are, which includes that there may be two different ideas, and maybe both are right or maybe both are wrong, you know. So yes. And he would, I think he would say that it's not that there is one perfect practice for enlightenment, right? He would say that some people may be destined to have a different practice, and through that, they have some insight, different insight. So it's not that there is only one way things have to be. And for people, generally, that is very hard to accept because they're so identified with the idea. They have invested in the idea. They have invested themselves in the idea. So for them, it's like, "Oh, how dare you talk about money when there are so many people starving?" And but the thing is, they don't have a clue about the starving people because they have never been with the starving people. They have never lived with their families. They have, and yes, there are challenges over there, but there are different challenges over here. You know, they may be different. There may be more physical suffering there, but there may be more psychological suffering here. But you know, pe- the thing is that people are trying to imagine the other person's perspective and forming an opinion. So they're like, okay, if somebody is from that strata of society, they are suffering. Oh, then that means they are feeling like the way I am feeling right now. Exactly. And I
Yeah,
am feeling right now. So uh, the thing is, they're not worried about them. They're worried about,
yeah,
yeah,
of
what is
course.
happening within. So, and from that, the whole movement comes up that I must do activism, I must do this, I must do that. And, and, you know, when someone actually wants to do something about a given situation, they they approach it practically and they consider all the factors that are going to play in it. Now, I'll just give you one example. Now, you know, Sai Mandir in Lodi Road, near Lodi Road in
Yeah,
New Delhi. Now, one of my friends was in a very giving mood one day. So he was like, I want to distribute some stuff to the poor people who were over there. And I said, great idea. Let's go. Let's do it. So I took him there to the temple. And it was crowded and chaotic. So first we had a very difficult time parking the car, and then we took out stuff and everything, whatever he had, and he started distributing them. And after it was done, he came back to the car, and I wasn't there. Like, I was standing far, and I said, I'll stay here. You do whatever you need to do.
Mhm.
And he did it, and he came back, and then he said that this was the most beautiful experience, and then all of a sudden realized that his wallet is missing.
Oh,
His wallet was missing, and that time he was like, rascals. He was like, thieves. His whole idea in that particular moment flipped. It flipped, you know. And I said,
based on your emotion.
yes, I said, man, you opted for this, and you could have been prepared for all the outcomes. So yes, when we try to quote unquote do an quote unquote noble deed, some uncomfortable things are going to happen to us as well. Because you have to step into the mud, you have to get dirty when you step into the mud, just speaking metaphorically. So one has to take into account all the factors. We cannot, when we operate from this idea, from this whole imaginative concept that I must do this because it feels right. The seva must happen because it feels right, because this is how my family does it, this is how my gurus does it. Then we get trapped. then we limit ourselves. Otherwise, otherwise, the best seva first, it starts with oneself, you know. First, let's examine our own minds as to what is happening here. If there is clarity here, there is peace here in mind and body, and the mind body is integrated, then I think the best thing is that you will be nuisance to only a couple of people, not not
Yeah, they
not
complain.
yeah, not everyone. So at least, you know, I'm saying if I include myself in that, you know, I am a nuisance to a couple of people too. So, but at least I will be peaceful and I will let other people be peaceful too. And the rest of the things will automatically happen. The seva, the doing, whatever needs to be done, that will, opportunities will show up and things will happen on their own. So, yeah, so that's it, I believe.
That's a beautiful answer, man. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yes, Mandeep.
Okay, Jagjot.
Hi.
First of all, am I audible?
Yes, yes. You're audible, but I think your volume is a little low.
Won't know how to correct that. Let me see. Am I audible now?
Yes, yes, Mandeep. Yes, tell me.
First of all, I want to commend for wonderful work you are doing. And I have a few questions to ask you.
Yes, please.
I listened to your uh, podcast on, let go of the story
Okay. Yes.
on Audible.
Yeah.
And it had to do with non-doership. Okay. And I have very tough time with it, with non-doership and honest admission. And partly I have been of a type that likes to take ownership of the things. You know, I don't shy away from the responsibility. If I made a mistake, I'm first one to admit it. Okay. So I have had tough time, handling non-doership. And this is something I struggle with. I carry with me a lot of guilt for something which I did a couple of years back. And I grapple with it even today, even though it is about 10 years back. Even when I listened to your podcast, I felt very light.
Yes.
You said in this podcast, you say you can let go of it instantly.
Yes.
Yes. So it was a big sigh of relief for me.
Yes. Yes.
But at the same time, I want to confess that a part of me revolts against that. Yeah, very off and on.
Yes.
I want to know, how do I handle that? Okay. And how can I this I would not call it concept. I would know an appropriate word for that. Yeah, the idea of surrender. Okay, let be embedded with me.
Right.
Embedded in me rather. So this is my question.
Okay. So I think this is a wonderful exploration by you where you are already aware that this is causing a conflict, right? Because what happens is that a majority of us are not even aware that there is a conflict. At least you are examining it. And I think the examination is happening because you see that maybe exploration of this idea can bring peace. I mean, that possibility is there. Now,
Yeah.
it is not solid as yet, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. So, first thing is, Yes, not to put any resistance into anything. So if there is not acceptance, one does not have to force oneself to accept that I am not the doer, right? Just examine it. Let the examination happen. Now, you say that you did something a couple of years back that created guilt. Now, try to identify whatever you did, right? You must have done it with a specific state of mind at that point of time. Did you always have that specific state of mind in your life, or did it change?
It changed.
It changed, right? So, what that means is that at that particular point, a trigger happened. A trigger happened. It could be conscious, it could be subconscious, but a trigger happened which created a response from the mind body organism in a way that is considered by society as maybe something not good, or whatever they may want to give a label to it, which may have caused a hurt at some other, into some other organism, okay, some other person. But was it really your action? Now the concept is that at a given moment there are there are innumerable, I don't know if innumerable is the right word, but there are so many forces acting on a human being that this small intellect mind cannot even fathom. So you may think that you acted in that moment, but if you notice carefully, if you try to examine that whole timeline, you will see that certain things happened, certain stimulus happened, which
Mhm.
prompted that reaction, right?
Mhm.
And that reaction created a reaction in another organism, probably a loved one or friend, or could be anybody. And
Mhm.
because of that interaction, you know, now in that moment, it could be anything. It could be a heated argument, could be an act of violence, could be anything. Now, the concept does not say that you can run away from the consequences by saying that I am not the doer. Because if you say that, you know, that you are not the doer and I can just do anything and run away, then the consequences are also going to be served. They won't be served to anyone, but they will be served, right? So that can happen as a in different ways. That can happen, that can manifest as a broken relationship, as a destroyed relationship, or anything. Even if it's a criminal activity, it can happen as a punishment. But yes, the consequences are going to happen. So in one can certainly apologize, one can certainly confess that, okay, this is something that happened in that moment, I made a mistake in that moment, or I acted in a certain way in that moment. And one can certainly, out of compassion for the other person, apologize, make an apology, sincere apology. But after that, know that this is the only way it had to be. You could not have acted otherwise. And the whole idea that I did it, till you are living with that thought that I did that thing, the ego will constantly create guilt, because guilt is the currency the ego pays itself to continue the behavior actually. When it comes from, when the guilt arises naturally, when the remorse arises naturally, then one can simply apologize and move on. And then the story is finished there and then. It does not keep it in memory, register it in memory. But the problem is the ego, it registers in the memory and it says that, no, I did this, I did that. Now, if you see that it is not serving any purpose, neither it is helping you or the other person to carry that guilt around, right? So what one can do is just examine if in that moment, whenever a reaction happens within you, in that moment, is it really your action? If let's say you let's say if there is a person who's short tempered, now we can say that this person is short tempered and they have a natural tendency to react to certain situations. But is that the person's fault, or is that the person's conditioning? After all, there has been certain conditioning that made that person that way. And we did not have any control over that conditioning. It could be something from childhood. It could be our associations, the type of relationships we had, the type of friendships we had, the schooling that we went to the college, the life challenges, the life stressors that we faced in life, right? The traumas that we faced in life. Was anything in our control? Not at all. So all of these forces which created this conditioning that I call myself as me, right?
Mm.
This is an image. If I know that this is an image, right, then I know that this image is designed in this way that I will react. And acceptance of that of that thing is the first step to actually move forward. Because till one does not accept, we start the whole movement. No, then we say, okay, I will do more meditation, right? We try to find solutions. I will do more meditation. I will look for more I will read more books. So I see that maybe time can solve my problem. But what the concept here says is that it's not on time. It's not based on time. You can just drop it right now, in this very moment. And the only concept is that you're not the doer. You never did anything. And uh, this was the quote that I read from Ramesh Balsekar, that if you surrender, if the surrender happens, we don't even say you surrender, because the ego cannot surrender. But if the surrender happens, and it happens at some point when the understanding is deep, then one gets free from all the guilt. Because when I did not do the act, then why guilt? But again, it's not about escaping responsibility. I can certainly apologize and do whatever is necessary to, to mend the ways. But I just do not live with that for the rest of my life. I do not, once I have apologized, once I have mended things with other people, it's time for me to move on. Simply move on. Because I know that what happened in that moment was God's will and not my personal doing.
Okay, so this sounds very comforting.
Yes.
So
Yes. It
I
is.
can. So,
Let it happen. Let it happen. Let it, let the examination happen. Now, Ramesh would give a practice which was called self investigation. He would say that, okay, whenever you have such a challenge, right, just in that moment sit and try to examine if any action was truly your action. Do you think that it originated in you, or was there certain ideas that led to that particular action? And you will always find that there were certain ideas which led to a particular action. And those ideas were given to you by someone, maybe your parents, maybe your, education or whatever, but they came from the outside. You were not born with that. So those things were never in your control,
mhm,
right?
I get it.
Yeah.
So related to that, I have another question is,
Yes.
um, you know, I have a chattering mind, and I saw your video on how to quieten your chattering mind.
Yeah.
And your response to that is, who's asking the question?
Yeah.
Who's
Yeah.
asking? If
Yeah. So my idea is like, why is chattering mind a problem? Right?
mm,
Why is it a problem?
mm,
Now, the chattering mind is usually a problem when one is identified with certain thoughts. When this whole polarity of good and bad is deeply embedded within one system. It's like, I know this is right and it should be this way, and I know that is wrong. So, we can say that even the idea that a chattering is a bad thing can be an identification. I should not have a chattering mind. Why? Because all the videos on YouTube and all the books says that chattering mind is bad. But what if I just surrender to that thought and I say that if the chattering happens, let it happen. If the discomfort arises, okay, because of that, even let that happen, then what? Right? So when one completely surrenders to what is, that means things as they are happening,
Mhm.
you will automatically find that the mind stops to chatter, because then there is nothing for mind to get identified with.
Mhm.
But the moment you create a thought, a parallel thought that I must stop my mind's chatter because that is uncomfortable, what you're doing is you're just giving yourself one more task out of thousands of tasks that you have for the day. And your mind, out of thousands of things that it is identified, you're giving it just one more responsibility. You're saying, now you have to also stop chattering. So,
Mhm.
so mind, you know, being given the task to silence itself is like employing a police and employing a thief to protect your valuables. So the thief
Mhm.
will convince you, thief will say that, okay, I will protect all your stuff, and you just sleep. And then when the time is right, it'll just, you know,
Mhm.
do the act. So mind will say, I'll do sadhana, I'll do meditation, I'll do this, I'll do that, to silence itself. But then it'll produce even more and more chattering.
Mhm. Uh, so I can handle the mind during the daytime. So let me tell you the practical problem I face
Yeah.
is that I have chronic insomnia for a couple of years.
Okay.
Okay? And it has worsened after I had two attacks of COVID infection, and it has worsened. It has disturbed my sleep patterns,
Okay.
and now I have sleep apnea also.
Okay.
Okay, okay. Now it is in the day I manage thoughts. I'm able to fight quite well, but
Right.
in the night, my thoughts are having a party.
Yeah.
Okay, and okay, so which make it very difficult to sleep,
Yeah. Yeah.
which ruins my next day if you are not. So part of it is sleep apnea, which I cannot sleep deeply. Part of it is I always, since couple of years, I have insomnia.
Right. Right.
So what would you suggest as a practical tools to solve or handle this?
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. But I would give you one thought. Just think about it. What if it's okay if it ruins the next day? What if it's okay that it even impacts your career? What if it's acceptable that let it just do whatever it wants to do? Let it bring you completely down. What if you're okay with that thought too? It's like we are caught up with the idea that somehow I will be destroyed, that this mind will destroy me. You know, that is one of the fear, and it is a genuine fear. It's not like I'm just talking about it. But what if we just surrender to it completely and say that, okay, if it is happening, let it happen. Yes, there may be consequences. Yes, the situation may be difficult for me. But if I just completely give up, because the more I try to control this, I'm using the mind, I'm using that instrument which actually creates thought to suppress thought. I'm trying to find some way to quiet the mind. Now I'm pointing to the thinker, like who is the thinker? And this is not my concept, it's not my theory. Like this is what Ramana Maharishi also speaks about. He says that focus on the I. Like who is the I that says I am thinking? Who is the I that says that it's impacting my work? Yes, if we can actually allow that, at some point there will be a natural ease.
Okay.
But till we are fighting with it and we are trying to control an outcome, it's like it should not impact my work, it should not impact my life. We are identified with an outcome and then we are trying to find a solution. So mind is more, it is obsessed with solution. It just wants to find a solution. And what I'm saying is that every solution is going to breed more and more problems. It's going to bring up more and more questions. It's never going to be an ideal situation. But what if we accept all of this completely and we say that, okay, if my mental horses are running wild, why don't I just let them be that way? You know, why don't I just let them and see what is the worst that would happen? Now, the mind does try to imagine the worst case scenario, and the worst case scenario would be, okay, I will be not productive, I will lose my job. It will just go on and on. But that usually does not happen. It usually does not happen that way. But if the mind is fully surrender, like if the surrender has happened and mind has given up doership completely, then it will be like, okay, let whatever is happening happen. It is a challenging thing for the mind because it actually goes against the traditional conditioning, which says, no, you have to keep all the variables in check. But the teachers, the masters say that you cannot control these things. In fact, the very effort that you put to control these things make them more worse, makes the mind more restless. And yet they also say that it can be just given up right now. The whole idea can be given up right now. And it can be, so what? So what?
Mhm. That's a refreshing take on it. Okay. And, but let me share with you that something which if you go out of your mind, and when I do, sometimes it brings sudden relief to me when I do self inquiry. Okay? For example, if I pose these questions, what is that which is aware of my thoughts?
That
What
is
is
what,
that?
yes,
Yeah.
that is the investigation. And I
Yeah.
can come up with an answer that it is this, it is that. But that's the thing. What is that is aware? You are aware of your conditioning. Okay. You are aware of your conditioning in multiple ways. First, you know that this is causing you trouble. Then you also know that certain things are not working. Then you can also see that you're trying to catch hold of concepts, but that is also not working. And you can also see, in addition to that, you are attached to certain outcomes. You want to ensure certain outcomes, right?
Mhm.
I should not have sleeping problems. I should not have any difficulty in my professional work or whatever it is, or relationship or anything. But these are all foundations. So, yes, that's the main question. What is it that is aware of these things? Now, I can give you the traditional answer, which is like the boundless, the impersonal awareness, the witness, which is not affected, which remains unaffected with what is happening, is actually aware all the time because its nature is self-awareness. It's like the self-luminous sun. However, I want you to examine that for yourself and then see what it is.
I want to share just one piece of it is when I do that self inquiry. So, what is that which is noticing these thoughts or feelings,
Yes.
or am I aware?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. It brings my mind to standstill,
Yes. Yes.
and which gives me a lot of relief.
Yes. Exactly. Because you have culminated the whole process of thought and you have retracted into your source, which is the witness, which is simply not concerned with you being the mind body organism or doing this or doing that. You retract into it. So that is why that question was designed by Ramana Maharishi. That, because it stops everything. And I think I also mentioned it when I began this talk. I said that that is the most important question. The rest of all the questions which are outward moving, this is the only question which is inwards moving, which is like, who is the thinker? Who is the one that is troubled? Who wants to stop thinking? Who feels guilty? Who is that? What is that entity? And the moment you go back to it, retract, you know, it stops. It just stops.
Now, I had last question.
Okay.
How can I be in touch with the source from moment to moment?
Well, you cannot be in touch with the source. The source will be in touch with you. So give up the idea of trying to reach the source. And I think I'll just read Ramesh's quote one more just to give you more clarity on this. Maybe you can reflect on this. He says, whatever you know is an object and you are the subject. So if you want to know God, what does it mean? You are the subject and God is the object. But what exists is the other way around. God is the subject and you are the object. So, point being that the moments of relief will be provided to you by the source. We do not have the power to demand it. We cannot even keep any expectations. And that is surrender, actually. So, let it come to you. And what you will, but here's, I will say this one thing is that when you're completely receptive and when you've surrendered to it, you will experience that the moments of relief will come more frequently and they will be longer in duration. This does happen. This does happen.
Thank you very much. In gratitude.
Okay. Okay, Mandeep. Thank you. Okay, we can take up one more last question and then we can conclude. I think it's already late. So we'll take up one last question from anyone. If you'd like to ask or you would like to share anything, feel free to. Okay, Sarthak.
Yeah, just because nobody was asking.
Yes, go on, Sarthak.
Um, yeah, this another thing came into my mind about social service. Not that my head is stuck in that mode now, but very funny. My mother, she was so she took it upon herself to teach the poor and underprivileged in a village real close to where I live. So it's kind of like it's like a jhopalpatti kind of a situation, and it's so they have an NGO there who sends students who cannot understand certain concepts in schools. So my mother was giving free tuition for that. My mother used to be a she was a professor. She was a senior lecturer for political science and like all these subjects: political science, geography, history.
Yeah.
So she used to send. So this NGO lady used to send this boy to a place. And my mom used to teach him. He was very distractive, social media, right? But like my mom used to be a little, stern and bring him back to focus and stuff like that. So I don't know, somehow I'm not sure what happened, but like he stopped coming. There was like maybe we had like an idea about him struggling at home, like people who come from smaller towns and their parents put a lot of pressure on them, and then they're living with their relatives. They're also like, on their case all the time. It's really hard moving to the big city.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
that. So I guess it was like family pressure of some sort. But this NGO lady's statement really like I don't know, it kind of it got stuck with me where she was like she's working like in the NGO doing seva, right?
Mm.
But she said, you know what, इन लोगों के साथ ना ज्यादा क्लोज मत हुआ करो वरना फिर ना वो फायदा उठाने लग जाए. I'm like, how can you say that when you're running an NGO? And I'm like,
Okay.
that's pragmatic advice on some level, but the point is I found that there were other things she said where I found like it was almost as if was forcing herself to do it. You know what I mean? Like I had
Ah,
to do
yeah,
this
yeah,
to feel
yeah.
good about myself. And but then she got annoyed when they did not respond to it according to how she wanted them to respond to it.
Okay.
And then she just straight up like, pardon my French, she started shit talking them. I was like, how can you shit talk the people you're trying to help?
Yeah. So I think what Sarthak said in Hindi was, don't get too close to these people, otherwise they will take advantage of you. So the whole idea is that when, you know, when people take up this work, you know, of starting something or doing something for what they see as, you know, unprivileged or this or that, again, it comes back to the same thing, that there are certain things which are going to happen over there. You know, when we mix up with that crowd, there's going to be some crime, there's going to be some um, you know, mischief. And of course, those kids, they come from a very rural, rustic background, and probably most of them have faced abuse and violence in their childhood. So when one does that kind of work, one has to take into factor all those accounts, right? That these things will be there. But yes, making assumptions about any human being, or making a generalized assumption about things, that, oh, it is this way, you know, these people are like this, and you know, they'll never change, and this and that, man, that's something, again, that is something which is just coming from her own filters, from her own limited thinking. So what I think what one can do is like, okay, maybe your mom, she tried to teach the child, and he learned something, and then he didn't come. Okay, we can see that as just maybe one instance, and yes, that may happen, you know. But again, it's like, just on the basis of that, to have a generalized view. And also, you know, when you're doing this kind of work, one has to be open, completely open to a lot of other things. So as far as I know, um, people who have done great services, they didn't complain. Like, for example, Mother Teresa, or maybe Mahatma Gandhi, when they did things, they never complained. Yes, a lot of nasty stuff was happening at that. Yes, a lot of nasty stuff was happening in the ashrams, in the societies, but they did not let those small instances define the whole, right? The whole of the area. I'm sure there are other kids from that area that would maybe like to be helped by your mom, and maybe she can deliver services to them. uh, and So yes, when you know, people come with their own limited expectations, and these kind of things happen. It's again, you know, one has to question as to why one is doing this kind of work. Like, is
I
it
know.
really that one wants to do this work, or is it coming from
Right.
this idea that I must do this work because, you know? So again, it is like self knowledge is important. And what the sages here emphasize is self knowledge. First know yourself. First know yourself deep, and then decide if you want to take a um, certain action towards certain things. I I had my spiritual insight about 10 years back, but I didn't talk. For the first 4 years, I didn't even talk. I didn't even write. I just explored, examined. And even uh, after that, like for 1 or 2 years, I was just talking about general things. I didn't talk about, not even about non-duality or anything. But yes, at some point I felt the need. In fact, I didn't feel the need. It just came. And then I started talking about it. And then I met Gotham, and then we spoke. And then, you know, things like it just unfolded
Yeah.
naturally. So, yeah. So yeah, man, that happens. Yes, that also happens.
I've had the same
It's,
journey. I'm like, literally, it's unfolding in the same way that you're describing yours. It's not even a joke.
yeah, it,
Um,
it is.
but this reminds me of a quote from Maharaj, which is my favorite quote, which I make to everybody who works in the NGO, is connected to the environment. I say this just to get a rise out of them,
Yeah.
but they enjoy it. It's like, you know what Maharaj says about social reformers? He's like, what? Maharaj says that the only thing that the world needs reforming from is our social reform.
You see, the whole essence is that do these things. If you want to do them, but do them knowing that you are not the doer.
Yeah.
Do them knowing that you are not the doer. You are just the instrument that is employed by the source to carry out certain activities. And the best that you can do is the best that has been allocated to you. So after that, there is no pressure on oneself. One can certainly do services and social services. There's nothing wrong about it. It's just that self knowledge is important. And when you do it with this whole understanding that you're not the doer and that things are simply happening, you're not connected to an outcome, which is the essence of the message of Bhagavad Gita, that you're not connected to the outcome. You cannot change anybody's life. You can do the best for them, but you cannot change anybody's life because their life is already determined by source. It shouldn't stop you from doing whatever you feel you should do for that person, but you know do it knowing that you are not the doer. So I will conclude with that with that with that note, and thank you all for joining, and thank you Jacqueline, for your beautiful yin yoga session. And we will meet next Sunday, same time, with another message of peace and lots of love to you all. Good night. Take care of yourselves.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Yes, thank you so much, Jackie. It was really lovely, the session. Thank you so much. And thank you also, Jagjot. I really enjoyed the talk. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much. Thank you for listening.